As a single dad, I never imagined a single email could turn my life around. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The morning was quiet, too quiet. I sipped my coffee, feeling the warmth seep into my bones. My heart was heavy, but I held on to hope. I glanced at my phone, still no messages. My son was in the other room, his laughter a distant echo, but it faded as I stared at the screen. Then it came. A notification. I opened the email. My breath caught. The words jumped off the screen, dancing in a frenzy. Urgent, it said. Action required. My hands trembled, and I could barely grasp the device. My world felt like it tilted. It was an offer, one I had never expected, one that could change everything. But who was sending it? The sender was shrouded in mystery. A name I recognized, but didn't fully understand. What did it mean? I could feel the adrenaline pulsing through my veins, quickening my heartbeat. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. A lump formed in my throat. Should I reply? Should I dive into this unknown? Outside, the wind howled. It seemed to sense my turmoil. My son peeked around the corner, curious, eyes wide. "Dad, are you okay?" he asked. I forced a smile, but saw the worry etched on his face. I didn't want him to see my fear. This was about him, about our future. Thoughts swirled in my mind. What if this was a scam? Or War Sea trap? I remembered the countless times I had sacrificed for my son. Each moment, a thread binding us closer together. But with each thread, there came the weight of my past. I couldn't let it overwhelm me now. I needed to protect him. Then, another thought struck me. What if this was my chance? My heart raced anew, hope flickering like a flame against the wind. But the fear of failure loomed large. I could almost see my dreams and nightmares battling it out in my mind. I closed my eyes, tried to steady my breathing. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the silence of the room pressing down on me. Just then, my phone buzzed again, another email. My stomach twisted. I needed to choose, but the choice felt monumental. Should I expose us to the unknown, or play it safe, holding on to what little we had? "Dad?" My son tugged at my shirt, and I opened my eyes. His innocent face grounded me. But what was I really risking? Maybe I was already living in the shadow of a nightmare. The room seemed to dim, questions swirling. What was this email asking of me? What path lay ahead? I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The tension held us both captive. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The day dragged on, each clock tick marking the weight of indecision pressing on my chest. I made lighthearted conversation with my son, but his eyes told me he sensed something deeper. He was more attuned to my emotions than I cared to admit. The worry in his gaze gnawed at me. As dusk settled in, casting elongated shadows across our cluttered living room, I finally mustered the courage to read the email again. The words remained insistent, a tether to an opportunity one couldn't quite grasp. I took a deep breath, my chest tightening. "What do you think, buddy?" I began, unsure if I sought advice or simply wanted to air the mounting concern. "If you had a chance at something really important, would you take it?" He looked up at me, contemplating with a furrowed brow that told me he was thinking hard. "Like the time you almost got the job at that big office?" he asked, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "You said it would change everything." His innocent words struck a chord, and I couldn't bear the throbbing sense of loss that overwhelmed me then. How could I explain that this felt different? This wasn't just about ambition. It was about survival. I thought of the small apartment I struggled to pay for, of the bills stacked like ominous tides waiting to swallow us whole. "Yeah, it would have," I replied, my voice catching. "Then you should do it, Dad. If it's something important, you shouldn't be scared." His simplistic wisdom was a beacon amid the storm in my heart. For a moment, I felt the warmth of hope brush against the icy tendrils of fear, but it quickly receded, leaving behind uncertainty. Evening faded to night, and as I prepared dinner, the mundane tasks of chopping vegetables felt like a soothing rhythm amidst my inner chaos. Suddenly, as if summoned by my thoughts, the phone buzzed again. This time, the alert reminded me of a meeting an expectant date with uncertainty. I was supposed to connect with a colleague in less than an hour, discussing the email that had intruded upon our lives, and my hands trembled as I set the table for dinner. "What for dinner?" my son asked, his gaze darting to the dishes I haphazardly placed on the table. "Just the usual," I said, masking my own turmoil. "Just turkey and some vegetables. Nothing extraordinary." I poured us drinks, the sound of ice clinking echoing unnaturally loud in the silence that enveloped us. But deep down, I felt the weight of this ordinary moment, a stark contrast to the tempest raging inside me. After dinner, I tucked him into bed, brushing his hair off his forehead, taking solace in his sweet innocence. "Good night, Dad," he murmured, his eyelids fluttering as he succumbed to sleep. Closing the door softly, I returned to the living room, my heart racing. It was now or never. I opened the email one last time, the flickering screen casting shadows over my face. I was surprised to find I had held my breath, anticipation mingling with dread. The clock ticked on, mocking my indecision. I took a few steadying breaths and clicked a response draft. Time seemed to stretch before me. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat in the muted quiet. Would I really take the plunge? Just as I began to type, my phone rung an unknown caller. A jolt raced through me. My instincts urged caution. Should I answer? But my hand moved on its own, accepting the call before I could think twice. "Hello?" A smooth voice greeted, cutting through the silence. "Who is this?" I responded, my voice lacking any pretense of calm. "This is Thomas," the voice said, familiar yet distant. "I'm reaching out about the email you received. We need to meet. It's about your son." The last words felt like a punch to my gut. Everything I had feared burst to the surface, leaving me gasping. "What do you mean? What's going on?" "Please, just Listina decision needs to be made soon. Can you meet tomorrow?" An engulfing sense of dread washed over me, panic choking my thoughts. "My son, what did they know about him?" "Yes, I can meet," I managed to say. "Good. They'll send the details." The line went dead. I stood frozen, my mind racing. What had I invited into our lives? Outside, the wind howled again, an ominous reminder that my fragile world was about to be tested in ways I could never have imagined. The morning arrived too soon, the sun slicing through my curtains like an unwanted intruder. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of restless dreams that danced on the edges of my consciousness. The promise of that meeting loomed heavy, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. As I tiptoed into my son's room, I noticed the warmth of his small body curled under the blanket, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing around us. I hesitated, watching him breathe, that rhythm bringing me a moment of peace amidst the chaos. "Just another day," I whispered, trying to convince myself. Breakfast was a quiet affair. My son, still half asleep, munched on his toast, eyes glazed over with morning drowsiness. The sunlight flickered through the window, creating golden patterns on the table, but all I could see was the shadow that the unknown meeting cast over us. One last time, I tried to coax the words from my mind to my lips. "Hey, buddy, what would you think if we had to face something big today?" His head snapped up, brow furrowing in concern. "What do you mean?" "Just something important. Adult stuff, you know?" I tried to smile, but it felt strained, like plastic wrapping over a wound. "Is it about that job?" he asked, innocence laced with understanding. "Something like that." He reached for my hand, squeezing it tight. "It'll be okay, Dad," he reassured, his eyes bright with unwavering belief. "You always say you'll figure it out." Those words were a balm and a dagger all at once, filling me with warmth but also reminding me of my crippling uncertainty. I forced a nod, inhaling the scent of pancakes and syrup, small comforts against the storm brewing beyond our little space. The minutes crept toward the hour of reckoning. I paced the small living room, drowning in thoughts of what if and if only. My phone buzzed again, slicing through the air, and I jumped at the sound. Anxiety knotted in my stomach as I glanced at the screen. It was a reminder for the meeting. Discuss important matters regarding your son. The words felt like weights pressing down on my chest. My throat ached with the unshed feelings, the worries, the fears, the love. I shook my head, as though I could clear the clouds that lingered in my thoughts. How could they know? What could they possibly mean? I have to go out for a bit, buddy, I said, trying to sound casual as I knelt beside him. Stay here and watch cartoons, okay? Can I come with you? He asked, his voice small and hopeful. Not this time. We'll be back before you know it. I ruffled his hair, framing my words with a smile that felt more like a mask. Just relax and enjoy. Okay, you'll do that, he agreed, his face lighting up with a boyish grin. When I finally stepped outside, the world felt different, the air thick with muted colors and unwritten consequences. Each step towards the meeting sent my pulse racing, a whisper of fear accompanying me. What lay ahead? I could sense it pulsating beneath the surface, a tidal wave waiting to crash to the coffee shop where we agreed to meet. Time stood still. I arrived early, ordering a cup of coffee, but I barely sipped it as I watched the door nervously, each jingle of its opening sending my heart into a tailspin. The people around me appeared to move in slow motion, their conversations droning like muffled echoes in a dream. All I could think about was my son, the essence of innocence wrapped in youthful excitement. Minutes turned into an agonizing eternity when finally, I spotted Thomas as he entered, his demeanor commanding yet veiled in something deeper concern or perhaps pity. I couldn't decipher. He approached me with a certain gravity, extending his hand, which I took reluctantly. Thanks for meeting me on short notice, he said, settling into the chair across from me, the weight of the conversation palpable in the air. What do you want? My voice came out sharper than intended. Laced with an urgency that matched my inner turmoil, he exhaled, scrutinizing his surroundings as though they held the answers. It's about your son's health. The statement hung in the air, dense and suffocating. My heart dropped, every guard I had erected crumbling against the relentless tide of worry. What do you mean? What's wrong with him? I can't share too much without. Thomas hesitated, leaning forward, his voice dropping to a whisper without proper authorization. But a decision needs to be made soon, and neither you nor your son can afford to miss this. That a rush of panic surged through me. You're scaring me. Just tell me what's happening. That email you received wasn't just a standard opportunity. It ties into your son's health, his future. If you act now, there might be a chance there was the thread of dread weaving around hope, coiling tighter. My breath faltered, a rush of emotions threatening to fracture my composure. What do I have to do? Trust me, Thomas urged, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that stirred both fear and curiosity. But you need to make a choice today. The world spun around me as I sat back, the weight of it all crashing down. My son's life was in my hands, a decision looming on the horizon like clouds ready to burst. As I gazed into Thomas's knowing eyes, the unshakable truth chilled me. Life was no longer my own. It depended on the choice I had yet to make. And as I left the cafe, I couldn't help but wonder if the darkness creeping into my heart was a result of my hesitation or a prelude to something much worse. I pulled my phone from my pocket, my hands clammy as I looked at my son's picture on the screen, the embodiment of innocence and hope, and my heart ached as the realization settled. Making it right wouldn't be easy, and I wasn't prepared for the storm that lay ahead. The future blurred before my eyes. Hope and despair entwined like the dance of shadows, spiraling into the unknown. And as I glanced back toward the cafe, a sense of foreboding settled deep within me. The clock was ticking, and soon I would be faced with a choice, one that would redefine everything. The drive home felt like an eternity, each moment stretching into the next, a jagged knot of worry twisting inside me. My mind churned with the implications of Thomas's words, each possibility overwhelming in its enormity. I envisioned scenarios playing out in vivid detail, my son's laughter morphing into cries of pain, the faces of doctors in sterile rooms, the machines humming ominously in the background. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, the road a blur as I fought back tears. As I pulled into the driveway, the sky above was a canvas of faded oranges and pinks, the days slipping away without my permission. I stepped out into the evening air, the weight of uncertainty pressing against my chest. Before I could lose myself in spirals of doubt, I forced myself to focus on my son, the elusive beacon of hope that guided me through the darkness. Entering the house, I found him sprawled on the couch, wrapped in a cocoon of blankets, eyes glued to the television. "Hey, bud," I said, forcing cheer in my voice. "Dad, can we have movie night?" He asked, his excitement palpable. "I saved the best ones for tonight." "Yeah, sure," I replied, the facade of normalcy becoming more difficult to maintain with each passing moment. I sat down beside him, trying to breathe in the familiar scent of popcorn and warmth that filled the space. A short laugh escaped my lips when he gave me his serious expression, that trademark look he reserved for decisive moments, a gesture that tugged at the corners of my heart. "What's wrong?" he asked suddenly, his gaze unyielding. "Nothing at all. Just tired." I ruffled his hair, the simple act igniting flickers of tenderness within me. "Let's pick a movie to as we scrolled through options. I fought to shake the cold grasp of fear that clung to my thoughts and inner turmoil, threatening to crash the temporary peace we were building. He settled on an adventurous cartoon, the kind that sparked laughter and created worlds that felt safe. But even that comfort felt like it was marching on borrowed time. Halfway through the film, the doorbell rang, cutting through the heavy atmosphere of our cozy cocoon. My heart raced as I slid a glance toward my son. "Stay here, okay? He'll check it out." With each step toward the door, dread wrapped around me as it news I feared. Had something happened? I hesitated long enough to take a deep breath before twisting the knob. The moment I opened it, I was confronted by a stranger, a woman dressed in a smart red blazer. A look of concern etched across her features. "Hi," she said softly. "My name is Laura. I'm here regarding the email." The ground under me felt like it shifted, as if I had just stepped onto a tightrope. "What do you want?" My voice held a mixture of apprehension and defiance, protective instincts surging forward that I know this is overwhelming. The woman's gentle demeanor caught me off guard, but I couldn't let down my guard just yet. "I'm here to help. Your son needs an advocate, someone to help navigate what comes next." "Next?" I echoed, panic fluttering in my chest. I felt the shadows growing longer, stretching toward my son who was still blissfully engaged in the animated characters on screen. "What does my son need? Please let me in," she urged, her eyes pleading with sincerity. "We need to talk about the options available to him. It's important that I calculated the risks in a heartbeat." If she was genuine, she could bring the solutions I feared were only figments of nightmares. If not, she could be another threat to our already fragile existence. Yet, the allure of hope was compelling, and I knew better than to ignore the small moments of kindness. "All right," I said finally, stepping aside to let her enter. She walked into the living room, her smile transforming the tension in the air into something almost tender. "What a lovely boy you have," she remarked lightly, her voice soft but confident. "I can see he brings you a lot of joy." "Yeah, he's my everything," I replied, watching my son dive deeper into the story playing out before him, unaware of the storm brewing in the background. As Laura sat, her manner shifted, from cordial to earnest. "I know this will be hard to hear, but I'm here to help you understand the options regarding his health and education due to potential complications that might arise." Her words hung in the air like shadows threatening, yet undeniable. "What complications?" I demanded, the knot in my stomach tightening. "There are opportunities for specialized resources that could greatly benefit him," she said, her tone steady. "However, decisions must be made quickly to secure timely access." Immediately, the wall's ID built began to tremble, cracks splintering in their foundations. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the animated music chirping from the television. At that moment, I felt the weight of all the unknowns, the choices swirling like leaves in a storm raging fiercely just outside our door, and my voice trembled slightly as I pressed for clarity. Is he sick? Is that why I got the email?" Laura's eyes softened, and I could see her struggling to find the best way to convey the truth without crushing my spirit. It's not about sickness in the traditional sense, but rather the possibility of future challenges he may face. We want to ensure that he has all the support he needs. The walls of my reality crumbled further, and as she spoke, I felt the veins of fear intermingling with a flicker of hope, the notion that perhaps fighting for him could lead to brighter tomorrows. But what if I failed? The thread of panic tugged at me as I weighed my options, the echo of Thomas' voice lingering in the recesses of my mind. "Let me think about it," I finally said, struggling to hold onto composure against the waves crashing around me. Just then, I heard a small voice from the couch. "Dad, who's that?" My son looked between me and Laura, confusion knitting his brow. Laura turned to face him. Something in her expression shifted, an understanding sparking in her gaze. "Hi there. I'm Laura. I'm here to talk with your dad about ways to help kids like you. Kids who are super smart and strong." That my son, ever perceptive, tilted his head. "What do you mean strong?" he asked, his voice brightening with curiosity. Laura knelt to his level, her eyes shimmering with genuine warmth. "Strong means being brave and clever, like acting when it's time to find out what you need to thrive. And I think you're one of the strongest kids around." I watched as he absorbed her words, the tension in the room slightly dissipating as he giggled, a sound that felt like music. But deep inside me, doubt festered, whispering dark reminders of the ticking clock. I turned back towards the doorway. A sudden chill gusted through, and my phone buzzed again loudly, insistently demanding my attention. I glanced down, and my heart stopped at a message from Thomas that read simply, "Time is running out. Meet me again tomorrow." I can't stress enough how crucial this is. I looked up, the world outside dimming, the weight of the news crashing over me once more. Tomorrow loomed threateningly, and already I felt the shadows creeping back into my consciousness. I was trapped between fear and hope, about to plunge into an abyss of decisions that would shape the very fabric of our lives. "Can we talk?" The question slipped from my lips, a lifeline holding the two worlds I inhabited, desperate to find clarity amidst the chaos. But as I stared at Laura's reassuring smile, I suddenly faced the daunting truth. The weight of tomorrow was no longer something I could delay. It would be a day that could either unravel everything or stitch us into a new tapestry of resilience. With my son watching, innocent and blissful, I wondered how I would find the strength to make a choice that might save Heimer, one that would haunt me forever. The clock was indeed ticking, and time was a merciless adversary. The choices laid bare before me would require every ounce of courage I had left. When the sun broke through the darkness the next morning, it felt like a fragile truce in a war zone. I woke before my son, the stillness of the house amplifying the whirlwind of thoughts grappling for space in my mind. I stood at the kitchen window, staring out at the golden rays illuminating our small backyard, a crooked fence, the worn-out swing set, and the patch of dandelions I always meant to clear out, but never got around to. Life seemed to pause, as if nature held its breath, allowing me a moment of clarity. The echoes of Laura's words resonated, stirring both worry and a sliver of determination within me. I needed to prepare for my meeting with Thomas, where I would have to confront the reality of our situation and make decisions that could alter everything. "Dad?" My son's voice cut through my thoughts, innocent and bright. I turned, smiling softly as he appeared, bleary-eyed and tousle-haired. "Morning, champ. Ready for some breakfast?" His heartwarming smile made everything else blur in significance. As I moved through our morning routine, my son playfully bounced around the kitchen, recounting details from a movie we had watched. Yet behind every laugh, I felt the quiet undercurrent of impending dread. How could I juggle parenting while bracing for the complexities that awaited us? As I plated his pancakes, the plinking of syrup and the sizzle of the butter felt oddly comforting. It didn't change a thing, but those moments brought a warmth, a familiarity grounded in love. "You know, if you keep being this awesome, I might just make you pancakes every day," I joked. He giggled. "Every day? Even on weekends? Especially on weekends?" I countered, glad to hear him laugh. With breakfast finished, I tried to create a sense of normalcy as we cleaned up together, joyful giggles mixing with the clatter of dishes. But every so often, my gaze wandered toward my phone, each buzz igniting a wave of apprehension. I didn't want to let the storms brewing inside overwhelm the bright laughter echoing through the house. As we rinsed the plates, my son looked up, his eyes suddenly serious. "Dad, what's wrong? You're acting weird." His gaze pierced through my facade, unraveling the protective layers ID so carefully assembled around my emotions. For a heartbeat, I was tempted to deflect and hide the truth, to bury it beneath another pancake or cartoon, but I realized honesty was essential, and just a bit worried about things. "What things?" he pressed, genuine concern furrowing his little brows. "About the future," I replied, choosing my words carefully. "You know, school and stuff." "Like homework?" he asked, genuine confusion blending with trepidation. "Kind of like that too, but more important." He blinked at me, and the unease in his eyes reminded me how fragile the cocoon of innocence could be. "It'll help you, Dad. You just have to say how." The kindness in his offer struck me. He wanted to be a part of this, wanted to help fix what was broken, but how could I place that burden on him? A part of me felt a surge of pride, but another felt painfully vulnerable. "Thanks, buddy, but I'm the one who has to figure it out, you know? It's just there's stuff I need to sort through before I can explain it." He nodded, his youthful understanding lighting up like fireflies in a dim meadow. Momentarily, I thought I heard the faintest whisper of hope, simmering just beneath the surface. The day stretched onward, filled with the remnants of playfulness. We spent the afternoon in the park, where laughter and swings countered the worries rattling in my mind. It was more than a distraction. It was a reminder of our bond, of the reason I fought against the tide of uncertain tide be there for him. Just when I thought I could breathe again, my phone buzzed with another message, stealing my focus. I glanced down and my heart dropped. The screen read, "Don't forget the appointment, need to confirm." A notification from the clinic information I had deliberately set aside until the impending meeting with Thomas had passed. "Can we swing one more time?" My son called, eyes bright with anticipation. "Of course," I replied, forcing my spirit to match his lightness. However, internally I felt the weight grow heavier with every push of the swing, the sun setting low, a mere illusion of calmness. Returning home that afternoon, I prepared my son for bedtime, tucking the covers around his small frame. The shadows of our conversations during the day cast a heaviness over my heart. As I turned the nightlight on, the room filled with a soft glow that chased away the darker corners. "Dad?" His voice was quiet, yet filled with concern again. "Is everything going to be okay?" I settled beside him, gently brushing hair off his forehead. "You know, I don't have all the answers right now, but I will do everything I can to make sure we're all right, promise?" He whispered, and the innocence in his voice created a new ache in my heart. "That I promise," I vowed. But within me, the truth weighed heavily. The enormity of our decisions loomed just ahead. As he nestled under the blankets, I placed a kiss on his forehead. While stepping away, my phone buzzed one last time another message from Thomas. "Don't be late. We need to talk to the doctors together." Time was fading, and suddenly, I felt the cracks widening, the uncertainty threatening to shatter the fragile hope I had forged from pancakes and laughter. I had to confront the reality of what was to come. Tomorrow would demand clarity, and as all those emotions surged within me, I realized I stood on the edge of a moment that could reshape everything. My heart raced. I was barely prepared for what lay ahead. But one thing was certain: the stakes had never felt higher, and I could either fold under the pressure or rise to meet it. Either way, I had to act. The next day dawned like a fragile promise, the kind that could easily unravel. I woke before the sun, the house enveloped in a heavy silence, filled only with the distant rustle of trees swaying outside. The golden rays had not yet begun to pour through the kitchen window, but I felt the weight of anticipation pressing down on my shoulders, a palpable reminder of the meeting that lay ahead. As I prepared breakfast, I felt the pang of worry knotting in my stomach. My son, blissfully unaware, shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. His small form radiated innocence, a warm beacon of light, but the brightness felt dimmed by the shadows hovering just out of reach. "Today's the day, huh?" he asked, trying to gauge the weight of the air around us. "Yes, buddy," I replied, forcing a smile. "Big day ahead." He stuffed a pancake into his mouth, crumbs falling like scattered pieces of my resolve. "He'll make a big sign for you to cheer you on." His innocent enthusiasm stirred something deep within me, a mix of pride, sadness, and an instinctual need to shield him from everything cloaked in uncertainty. "That's a great plan," I said, ruffling his hair. "Just remember, if you're making a sign, lots of bright colors." As the minutes ticked away, I immersed myself in mundane tasks, hoping to drown out the clamor of anxiety in my head. Washing dishes, folding laundry, each chore provided fleeting moments of normalcy. Yet the looming appointment created an unshakable tension that seeped into the air. Finally, it was time to leave. The car ride to the clinic was painfully quiet. My son leaned against the window, gazing at the world flying past us. I could see him attempting to process my distracted silence, the concern subtly etching lines on his young face. "You really love your job, don't you, Dad?" he asked suddenly. "That I do," I replied, my voice unsteady. "But sometimes jobs can get very complicated." "Like homework?" he offered, trying to connect in the only way he knew how. "Exactly like that," I said, hoping to keep it light, even as my heart thudded louder in my chest. Upon arriving, I walked hand in hand with him toward the entrance of the clinic, each step heavier than the last. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the hushed whispers around us. I spotted Thomas standing just outside, his expression a mix of urgency and sympathy. "Hey," he said as we approached, the weight of our shared history settling heavily between us. "You ready?" I forced a nod, feeling the walls of uncertainty closing in tighter. My son squeezed my hand, his small gesture grounding me just as I felt myself begin to float away. As we entered the examination room, I was struck by the starkness of the environment, the clinical whiteness, the charts lining the walls, the ticking clock creating a dissonance against my racing pulse. The doctor poked her head in, carrying with her a folder thick with all the answers I didn't want to confront. "Good morning. I see we have a full house today," she said, flashing a bright smile that felt jarring under the circumstances. "Just wanted to know where we stand, I guess," I murmured, the words almost catching in my throat. I glanced at my son, who was flipping through a children's book, oblivious to the weight of the moment, and I felt a flicker of hope, a small fire fighting against the encroaching darkness. When the doctor sat down and began explaining the results, every detail became a stone added to my heart. Words like treatment options and long-term prognosis echoed in my mind, each syllable striking like a hammer onto my resolve. I saw my son's eyes dart up, searching mine for reassurance. "Dad," he said, interrupting the doctor, "is it going to hurt?" The room, filled with clinical precision, suddenly felt impossibly small. I could feel the heat of shame crawling up my neck. Why did he have to witness this? No, buddy, it's just going to help." Duddy nodded, but I could see the uncertainty shimmering in his gaze, reflecting my own fear back at me. The doctor continued speaking about what we needed to be prepared for, and I struggled to absorb every word while not letting my emotions engulf me. Just as I believed I could steady my breath, Thomas said something that turned everything on its head. "Given your current situation, there's something I need to disclose," he began. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. If only I could read the expression on his face. "Your case is particularly unique, and after our discussions last night, it's become clear." That his voice faltered, and a sense of dread coiled tightly around my heart. "You what?" I couldn't contain my rising panic. As he looked around the room, the atmosphere crackled with something indefinable yet utterly surreal. The doctor stared at Thomas, confusion written all over her face. "What are you trying to say?" she pressed, her tone sharpening with urgency. "I think it's time we had a different conversation," he said, his eyes flickering back to me, weighted with some unspoken truth. My stomach plummeted. I held my son's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of his touch against the chill radiating from the sudden shift. What do you mean? It felt as if the air had been sucked from the room, leaving behind an unbearable vacuum. Whatever he was about to say could change everything, not just for me, but for my son, for everything we had fought to preserve. As Thomas took a breath to speak, I couldn't shake the growing sense of foreboding draping over us like a heavy blanket, an impending storm brewing just beyond the fragile veneer of our fragile existence. In that moment, the fragile hope I had clung to seemed to falter, and I realized that when it came to facing my fears and the truth, I was not prepared for what came next. The tension in the room hung thick as I fought to hold the fortress of my composure. My son, still holding my hand, began to fidget. I wanted to shield him from this moment, to pull him back to the carefree world of kids' games and bedtime stories. But that world felt further away with every tick of the clock. Thomas finally spoke, his voice low, measured. There's been something we overlooked, something relevant to your case. He glanced back at the doctor, who was shifting uncomfortably, as if bracing herself against a sudden gust of wind. I've been in contact with a specialist, someone who might offer a new perspective on your condition. Specialist? I echoed, uncertainty creeping into my voice. Yes, he continued, maintaining eye contact, as if trying to tether me to the moment. This is someone who has had some groundbreaking success. With my heart jumped at the word success. The faintest glimmer of hope emerged, battling against the shadows that laced through my thoughts. But I quickly extinguished that light inside me, wary of its fragility. I couldn't afford to believe in something I had no right to. Groundbreaking how? What were we talking about, Thomas? I pressed, my heartbeat drumming a rapid tempo against my rib cage, desperate for clarity amid confusion. That he inhaled deeply, still choosing his words with care. Some treatments haven't been fully explored in your case, especially in patients. Who he glanced at my son, then returned his gaze to Miney and your demographic. I thought you might want an alternative opinion before the heaviness of reality settled like a lead weight in my stomach. Before you what? I urged him, my voice sharper now, belying the storm of emotions roiling inside me. Before we proceed with traditional methods, there's a chance an opportunity to explore this route instead. It's unconventional, yes, booty see, I interrupted, frustration boiling up. But what's the catch? Nothing ever comes without a price, right? Is there something you're not telling me? My grip on my son's hand tightened as I struggled to keep my voice steady. No, there's nothing you and I haven't talked about already, Thomas said with conviction. It might mean traveling for you and your son, potentially seeking out options that are experimental. There's risk involved, but I believe wholeheartedly that it could lead to a breakthrough. I wanted to let in that glimmer of hope, but recoiled instinctively. Is this a gamble, Thomas? Have we really come to this? My boy, I looked over at my son, who now sat quietly, his bright eyes chasing between us. I felt a mix of shame and love flood through me. It was my job to protect him, and yet here I was, tangled in a conversation that tore at the seams of our safety. Dad? He asked softly, breaking my frantic spiral. Are you okay? Yes, buddy, I replied, forcing a smile though my heart felt like it was cracking under pressure. Just a grown-up talk. You know how those can be. I looked back at Thomas, feeling not just anger, but something akin to fragility. What if the breakthrough you speak of is only a mirage? What if I lose everything? Then let's redefine what everything means, Thomas pressed. It's not just about the disease and treatment. It's about living every day right now. His words hung heavy in the air, resounding with unspoken truths. The doctor, sensing the urgency, chimed in. Maybe we should take a moment to think this over, see what resonates for you before making any decisions. Perhaps you could take a breath outside. Let the fresh air help you clear your mind, she offered. But I felt rooted, an anchor against the weight of my decisions. Pushing myself away from fear seemed daunting. The thought of moving forward, of battling for life, terrified me. Without thinking, I stood up and paced the small room's perimeter. Every step thudded against the floor in perfect harmony with my panicked heart. My son watched, the concern within him growing palpable. Dad, he called out, his voice rising. Why can't we just go home? Right then, that innocence, that longing for normalcy washed over me like a wave, stark against the chaos around us. I turned to face him, kneeling to meet his gaze. I want to make things better for you. That's my priority. As I reached for his hand again, I felt a warmth emanating between USA connection that sparked a moment of clarity. I love you more than anything, I said, feeling the heat gather in my chest. But there are tough decisions ahead, and I want to be certain that what I choose is right for us. He nodded, the light glimmering in his eyes, flickering with worry, but still alive with trust. Whatever you choose, Dad, he said, his voice steady. I know you'll be brave. Just promise me we can still doodle and watch cartoons together. A raw wave of affection surged through me, mixed with both love and profound despair. I promise, I whispered, fighting against tears. But as I stood to answer Thomas' penetrating gaze, a sudden wave of a notification erupted from my phone, snapping me back to reality. My heart raced further, worried now that something was off kilter. Quickly glancing at the screen, I froze. An email flashed brightly across the screen, the sender's name instantly igniting a storm of emotions within me. I slowly opened it, my hands trembling, unable to shake the ominous sense of anticipation building within my chest. The subject line read, "Regarding your application," signaling something I had completely forgotten about amidst the whirlwind of the last few weeks. And then the first sentence stabbed into my gut. "We regret to inform you that your recent test results disqualify you from eligibility for." Suddenly, all my carefully constructed rationalizations felt like fragile glass shattering around me. My breath caught, and every thought dimmed into a blaring silence, leaving my son's innocent gaze locked on me, filled with an urgent need for understanding that I felt powerless to provide. "Dad?" he whispered, as if sensing the shift in the air. The room spun. I was caught between this heartbreaking reality and the devastating choices that awaited me. What I feared most had crashed upon us, and somehow I needed to navigate the storm that was just beginning to unleash its fury. The air in the small room grew dense, charged with the unspoken weight of anguish and shattered dreams. My thumb lingered on the email screen as I fought against the tide of dread that rushed in, threatening to drown my thoughts. My son clutched my hand tighter, sensing the shift, but he couldn't possibly grasp the enormity of what had just been revealed to me. "Dad?" he asked again, uncertainty tinting his voice. "What is it?" The question echoed in my mind, reverberating along with the painful truth. "It's nothing, buddy. Just some bad news," I replied, though the words felt hollow. I couldn't lay this burden upon his young shoulders. He deserved better than to carry this knowledge. Even if only for now, I turned my attention back to Thomas and the doctor, both of them looking increasingly concerned. "What's the next step?" I asked, my voice steady but breaking at the seams. I was acutely aware of the facade I was trying to uphold. Beneath it lay a chaos of despair. "There's always hope," Thomas replied cautiously. "Even if one path closes, there are others we can explore. We need to think critically, not just react in the moment." That I wanted to scream at him. "Hope? How do you expect me to see that when I've been told I'm not eligible for this treatment? For anything?" The words came out jagged, a cry for help that bounced against the walls, revealing cracks in my own resolve. The doctor adjusted her glasses, attempting to enter the chaotic melody of the moment. "It's natural to feel overwhelmed. I suggest we take a step back to talk to the specialist to consider what options you may still have. Sometimes it's a matter of perspective." "Perspective?" I spat. "Perspective isn't going to fix this. I'm supposed to protect him." I gestured toward my son, whose small frame seemed to shrink further beneath the weight of my turmoil. The look in his eyes, filled with worry, nearly shattered me. "Just think about it, please," Thomas urged. "You have time to consider this. You don't know what the specialist might suggest. There are always new developments. There is still time to take action. You're not out of options." "Are you sure?" My voice cracked. I was teetering on a precipice, caught between fighting for my life and wrestling with the fear of dragging my son along into the unknown. "Absolutely." His confidence felt like a lifeline, but the churning doubt in my gut pulled me back into darkness. As we stood there, the silence was thick, punctuated only by my son's soft breathing, the faint hope of his silent support wrapping around me like a fragile thread. He did not understand the nuances of life and death, but he understood the simple comforts of love. "Can we go to the park now?" he unexpectedly asked, breaking the heavy atmosphere that pressed down on us. "We can get that ice cream you promised me." The innocence of his request propelled me to a momentary respite, a small pocket of joy amidst the storm. The park was a reminder of simpler times when the biggest worry was not sharing his favorite toys. After casting one last lingering look at Thomas and the doctor, whose faces mirrored my own internal conflict, I nodded. "Yes, let's do that." I stood taller, bolstered by my son's unwavering belief in me, even when doubt clouded my own perspective. As we made our way to the park, the sun dripped golden rays through the branches, illuminating the path ahead. My son's laughter danced in the air around us, that sweet melody piercing through the burden I carried. I felt a flicker of resilience ignite within me, a spark of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in days. Once we reached the park, the familiar sights brought a warmth I desperately needed. Children's laughter echoed, the scent of popcorn wafted in the breeze, and as we found a bench, I watched him dash after a colorful kite that someone had let loose into the wind. It was in these fleeting moments, watching his joy radiate like sunlight, that I found my solace. But when I turned to grab my phone for a snapshot of his delight, another notification chimed. This time, it was a text. It was from my sister, whom I hadn't spoken to in months. The message immediately ignited a flicker of anger, pain intertwined with love. "I'm coming to help." Those words coiled around me like an unexpected embrace. But beneath that warmth lurked an avalanche of unresolved issues and the bitter memories of our last conversation. "Dad?" My son's voice jolted me from my thoughts as he returned, covered in a fairy tale tapestry of grass stains and dirt. "Can we get that ice cream now?" "Yes," I replied, grinning even as my stomach twisted into knots. "Let's get your ice cream as we moved toward the ice cream cart. I felt the intricate web of my life entwining further with both hope and pain. Perhaps my sister's impending arrival was a sign, both a chance for new beginnings and a confrontation of the unresolved conflicts that lay between us. But just as that thought settled in, I was struck by another realization. What if this uninvited chapter of my life, unraveling, now meant more than just my battle? What if it would lead to a deeper exploration of family, forgiveness, and survival? As my son giggled and pointed at the whimsical flavors displayed, I felt my heart split. Hope whispered softly, yet fear lingered just out of sight, working its way through the cracks formed in moments of despair. But just as I turned to him, ready to immerse myself in his joy, my phone buzzed again. Breath caught in my throat, the notification reading, "Important update on the specialist's availability." The universe had decided to taunt me once more. As I steadied myself, aware of the mixed emotions coursing through me, I realized I might have a choice to make soon. The low hum of the ice cream cart's motor mingled with the distant laughter of children, creating an ambience that felt both comforting and oppressive. My son's bright smile was a beacon piercing through the fog of apprehension surrounding me. Still, the impending weight of the next message loomed over my thoughts, threatening to pull me back into the darkness I struggled to escape. "Dad, can I get bubblegum flavor?" he asked, his eyes wide with enthusiasm as his finger pointed to the swirling blue concoction. The simplicity of his request tugged at my heart, and I swallowed hard against the emotional tide threatening to overflow. "Sure, buddy," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "It's your treat today. I ordered. My gaze drifted back toward the text notification waiting on my phone. It sat there, a malign presence in the sea of family festivities. The specialist's availability could lead to answers, perhaps a glimpse of hope. Or it could plunge me further into confusion and despair if the news was worse than I feared. I tried to shake thoughts of the text out of my mind, focusing instead on my son, who was now bouncing on the balls of his feet, eagerly awaiting his ice cream. The laugh that erupted from him filled me with warm the pure, childlike joy that should have been contagious, but felt unattainable in my current state. I handed him the cone. Adorned with an oversized, rainbow-colored swirl, I caught a glimpse of carefree moments that used to define my life, snapshots of me and my wife before everything changed. The vision shattered like glass, a sudden reminder that my life was intricately woven with loss. The buoyancy of the park and my son's laughter clashed with the heaviness that refused to let go. "Can we sit there?" my son asked, pointing toward a picnic table under the shade of an old oak tree. I nodded, attempting to ground myself in the tangiblia gravitation towards the present. If only for a moment. As we settled at the table, he took a huge bite of his ice cream, the glow of summer sun casting playful shadows across his face. "Look, Dad, it's like a unicorn," he exclaimed, his mouth smeared with blue. "Just don't let it melt too fast, all right?" I chuckled, genuinely moving to engage in the moment, if only to hide the turmoil brewing inside me. It was in these banal yet blissful seconds that a faint understanding, grounded, met his moment wasn't just a break from my struggles. It was the essence of what I was fighting for. I needed to cultivate strength, not only for myself, but for him too. My son was my anchor, a flickering light guiding me through dark waters. Yet, even as I attempted to cherish the present, my mind raced back to the text. I clenched my jaw tight, deliberating whether I should explore the unfolding realities now, or let them wait until later, like a double-edged sword, ready to either cut ties or sever bonds. As if sensing my inner conflict, my son looked up at me, a smear of blue icing gracing his cheek. "Dad, why are you sad? Are you thinking about the doctor?" His innocent inquiry cut straight through me, and my heart sank. How could I shield him from these worries, these realities encroaching upon our joy? I balled my hands into fists, trying to find my voice amidst a whirlpool of emotions. "No, sweetie, I'm just thinking about how great this ice cream is," I lied, leaning in to graze my cheek against his. "It really is the best, isn't it?" He nodded vigorously, his laughter ringing like chimes in the wind, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that my words were mere band-aids over a festering wound. But as we basked in the moment, I caught sight of an older gentleman sitting nearby, alone yet visibly content as he observed the park's children play. His eyes sparkled with wisdom, and as our gazes met, he offered a kind nod. There was something in his demeanor and understanding that transcended words, a recognition of the struggles hidden behind the smiles. In that moment, a bridge was built, a silent reassurance that sometimes compassion finds its way when it's needed most. Yet the ice cream began to melt, dripping slowly onto the table. It was a gentle reminder of time's passage, of how moments can slip through our fingers before we fully grasp their significance. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up, an incarnation of my fears brought back to life. With my son oblivious, I glanced down at the notification that read, "Office of the Specialist." I felt torn between my son's laughter and the palpable numbness of reality creeping back in. The clashing emotions became unbearable. "Can we go to the swings next?" my son's cheerful voice called out, jolting me momentarily from the turmoil. "Yeah, of course," I answered, though my heart pounded like a war drum echoing in my chest. Knowing that I had a decision to make, I cast a last glance at the text. I couldn't ignore it any longer, nor could I ignore the churning doubt that filled me with dread. "Come on, buddy," I said with shaky resolve, my hand fumbling in my pocket to retrieve the phone. As I stood to follow him toward the swings, I couldn't help but wonder, was this the moment I choose hope over despair? Or would this push me into a confrontation I was unprepared for? With every step forward as my son bounded ahead, I could feel the weight of uncertainty bearing down against the beating drum of resolve inside me. My world was about to shift again, but if I could lean into the light of my son's laughter, maybe I would find a way to navigate the dark. And that realization settled into my bones. I was bound to face whatever the next chapter held, But I couldn't help but feel that this journey of life, while fraught with treachery, was also woven with these fleeting threads of joy. Yet, as I reached for my phone, I held my breath, unable to shake the feeling that this choice might spiral deeper into something unforeseen. The gentle breeze wafted through the park, brushing against my face as I watched my son chase after the kite, his laughter dancing on the air. In that moment, the world around us vanished, cocooned in warmth and joy. His carefree spirit was a balm for my troubled heart, a reminder of everything worth fighting for. Yet, the weight of the notification in my hand tugged me back to realisha, stark reminder that the battle was far from over. The boundaries of our blissful escape shrunk as I glanced at the words on my phone. Office of the Specialist. Immediate response required. With trembling hands, I sought to gauge my emotionsa, wavering pulse of anxiety and hope intermingling. My mind raced, contemplating both the unknowns and the possibilities ahead. With each buzz of the notification, I could feel the pull of fate tugging at my sleeves, coaxing me into a decision that had the power to shift the very fabric of my life. That I took a deep breath, forcing myself to look away from the screen and instead watch my son. He spun in circles, arms wide open, embracing the world around him like it was made just for him. It struck me then the audacity of childhood. It was the whimsy to believe in magic, the courage to face the unknown without fear. "Dad, come see," he shouted, breaking through the cloud of introspection. I jogged over, eager to immerse myself in the joy that radiated from his small figure. He stood beneath the vibrant colors of the kite, almost touching the sky, his cheeks flushed and eyes sparkling. "Look, isn't it amazing?" "It is," I replied, feeling my heart swell with pride and love. "But you're even more amazing." I joined him beneath the fading sun, the shadows elongating as I knelt beside him. "What's your secret, huh? How do you make everything look so easy?" He grinned, the ice cream cone still clutched in one hand. "You just have to believe," he said, a small hero in a charge against the mundane world. Belief. The word resonated through me, stirring dormant truths that had been buried in my quest for control. Why had I lost that belief? I looked at him, wide-eyed and unburdened, and the fierce need to protect him morphed into an equally strong desire to teach him the strength of resilience. "All right, how about we make a deal?" I proposed, feeling the warmth of possibility ripple through me. "If you promise to keep believing, I promise to keep fighting for our best life. Deal?" He beamed, and we shook on it like it was the most sacred agreement made between souls. The surge of determination enveloped me as I stood up, emboldened by the light in his eyes. With a glance back at my phone, I understood that clarity wouldn't come from hiding anymore. I felt a flicker of courage push me onward into the unknown. This choice was not a burden, but a journey, a chance we could revel in together. The ice cream, once oozing with sweetness, was now melting noticeably in the afternoon sun. As I held it up, an idea sparked in me. "All right, little buddy, let's make a fun game. Whoever can lick their ice cream the fastest gets to choose dinner tonight." His eyes lit up with mischief, a divine spark that reminded me of my own childhood, and we dove into the absurd challenge, laughter, messiness, and ice cream dribbles, painting our moment together in varying shades of joy. Eventually, after much giggling and competitive teasing, our ice cream cones dwindled into sticky remnants. Out of breath and beaming with the thrill of victory, he pointed toward the swings. "Can we go again?" "Absolutely," I urged, indulging in the playful spirit seeping from his very being. As we swung back and forth, I caught snippets of conversation swirling around us, families bonding over picnics, children laughing, the harmonious muddle of life. Each swing upward felt like a metaphor heart tracing, like the choices I needed to confront soon, yet exhilarating in the shared thrill of flight. Suddenly, it dawned on me perhaps this was what I needed. Not the choice alone, but embracing this journey with open arms. The fears, the doubts, the challenges all tethered to this crucial lesson. Love didn't simply exist within the results of our choices, but the richness of the experiences we shared. The sun began to dip low, casting golden hues over the park. My heart felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of the pending decision and full of the laughter we had exchanged, the affirmations whispered between father and son. "I think it's time we head home," I finally said, offering him my hand amidst the swirl of excitement still humming in the evening as we walked back. I spotted the old man once more, who nodded reassuringly. The connection struck a chord, a reminder from the universe that we were not navigating this alone. We were part of something larger, a tapestry of human experience where threads intertwined, creating a beautiful chaos of support and resilience. Back home, the evening drew close, and as I tucked my son into bed, I finally felt a resonating truth enveloping me. I kissed his forehead, whispering, "Believe in tomorrow, even when it's hard. Because I promise, they'll always stand by you." "Good night, Dad. I believe," he murmured, drifting into peaceful slumber. In that moment, with the echoes of his dreams wrapping around us like a soft blanket, I pulled out my phone, feeling the weight shift. The email remained unopened, but with a renewed sense of fervor, I could finally face whichever path lay ahead. I would do it not just for him, but for the courage to reshape my own life and embrace the messy fate of existence. Tonight, I would be brave. And as I pressed open, everything shifted into focus, the landscapes of joy, sorrow, and uncertainty flowing together into something beautifully chaotic. Tomorrow awaited, but tonight we had love and belief entwined in every heartbeat. In the twilight of possibility, I breathed out my final thought. "I choose us."